Good morning from Miami Beach, home of Neurosurgical TV. We have the honor of having another daily dose of neurosurgery education. Today we're doing, Ip is going to talk about being a neurosurgeon, and he'll tell the exact title. And we have some distinguished guests too that Ip is going to call on. So Ip, I'll let you handle it. It's all yours.
Hello, Gleb. Hello, all the guys around here. Good to see you. I wanted to give a talk uh, like this because I thought the young neurosurgeons, most of the young neurosurgeons, they are on a journey and they really don't understand where they're going. I was on those crossroads about 14 years back, way back in 2006 when I was the chief resident. I was finishing my journey as a resident and I was becoming a neurosurgeon. And then the 14 years gave me some perspective. I've not done very bad in those 14 years, I must say. And I would like to share what I did right and what I did wrong in a very, very short time. I was also thinking of going through the cabinet sinus approaches today, but since Yuha is here, I would rather ask him to talk about his journey for some time as well. We all are on a journey, and at present, the journey is about neurosurgery. At present, maybe we are on different journeys, but our journey right now, most of us are on a neurosurgical journey. So we start as a resident, very bright-eyed, passionate, okay? And then interested in arts, sports, drinking, girls, fast cars, okay? And that is how we start. Then we become a consultant. We forget a few of these things. Then we become a senior consultant. Then the chief. And then finally retirement and blank. This is the cycle usually. This is what happens usually. Now, most of us take a few years at each junctures, which means we take a few years as a resident, as a junior consultant, then as a senior consultant, maybe a lot of years, and then we finally become the chief, and then we keep on improving. We get better and better with knowledge in general, wisdom, surgical techniques, and then by the time we're really good, it's often time to retire. This is what happens to a lot of people. I've been talking to a lot of people, and that's what they tell me. Some people are very different. For me, in my case, I was a chief by the time I was 31, so made a lot of difference because I could do things on my own. I had to do things on my own. There was no other way to get around it, so I had to improve. So that's not the case in a standard scenario. That's not the case. You get guidance, but then of course you don't get independent hand. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it. Now, some of us, we hold on to that skills. We teach some, and then finally we walk into the sunset. Some never see the sunset coming, and they're grim reminders of holding on for too long. Some never teach, and then they walk away. They are the fruits who fell into the ground and rotted while never giving a taste of themselves to anybody else. Some stay on like Roger Federer, continue to be the best. For example, Yuha. He's been around for a long time, but if you see him operate, I'm sure nobody's going to ask him why he's staying on. He's still probably the best. So there are people like that as well. So we have a very different spectrum Some people get very hurt. They do a few basilas, then after that they don't want to do anything more because they got hurt. And then they start talking about radiosurgery for basilar aneurysms and coiling for basilar aneurysms. I'm just giving an example. So for example, there must be some guys who tried something 3 or 4 times and then it didn't work, and instead of going back to the lab, they'll say, okay, partial resection is okay, and then you give gamma knife, and then so on and so forth. People manufacture their own philosophies, and then they take the aid of scientific papers. They create science for their own philosophies. That's what I've seen. Now you must understand, what one surgeon is a reflection of his personality. Okay? For example, a smart surgeon is somebody who would advocate about the merits of a partial resection of a tumor, which could actually be resected if he went to the lab, put in a lot of years, hard work, and then have a heart-wrenching surgery, have a lot of failures, and finally he would manage to resect those tumors, okay, without much morbidity. A smart guy, a smart surgeon wouldn't do that, okay? The present smart guys, they would say, okay, partial resection is okay. And they would say partial resection is better, in fact, when combined with gamma knife. So, instead, in my perspective, they are advocating 2 wrong things. But in his perspective, he's being smart. Both are not wrong. Both are correct. I wouldn't say my perspective is the only correct one. For example, clipping an aneurysm, taking so many years to learn clipping, to perfect it, okay, having so many heartbreaks. Coiling, it's an easy route apart. That's a smart surgeon. Now there are hybrid surgeons. I always remember when I hear hybrids, I always remember, this thing called liger, which is the cross between a tiger and a lion. Okay, it's got all the negative effects of the tiger and the lion. So when I hear hybrid surgeons, I remember liger. Okay, so they are not good at either clipping nor coiling. So that is the way to put it. I mean, you would say that I can clip and coil, but I would rather say either clip or coil. Don't put your leg into 2 boats, because both are 2 different skills, and the knowledge of coiling gives you a bias, thinking that, okay, let me coil this because it's a bit difficult to clip, and your learning process for clipping is gone. Okay, you will always, you take always the less resistant path. It is a human nature. Okay, the only choice is to have no choice. To have no choice is the best. Okay, so hybrid surgeons, my perspective is they are neither good clippers nor good coilers, but then that is a smart thing to do. I mean, if the patient tells you, I want coiling, he says, okay, I will do coiling as well. I can clip and coil, I don't know. Right, so then there are other guys who would advise radiation for cavernomas, okay? That is like, I would say it's like standing in the sun for cavernomas. Maybe that would also work. But there are guys who wouldn't want to go and operate on cavernomas. They would say, okay, don't take out cavernomas, let's give radiation to cavernomas. I don't know how is that going to work. And in a 3rd world country, which 5/6 of the world is, talking about decompressive and doing a cranioplasty later, when you could actually do microscopic surgery and improve results, or putting in enough spine implants in a patient so that he will sink if he stepped into the water. Okay, that kind of spine implants, or advocating for coiling or embolization in a 3rd world country when an AVM or an aneurysm could be handled surgically. This is your personality. If you're smart, you would choose the easy way. Neurosurgeons are not supposed to be smart. Okay? Neurosurgeons are supposed to be honest, hardworking, and have honor. This is very important. Okay? To have honor. Yeah, so I was talking about the, I was talking about the way that people take. Another thing is, a straightforward surgeon, a straightforward personality, they would try again, fail, try again, go ahead and resect the lesion. And if they cannot, they would either learn to resect it they would learn to resect it by going back to the lab, or resign to the fact that, okay, I cannot resect it. Maybe somebody else might come. I would pass on my teaching to the younger generation so that somebody would improve on that and finally then go and resect it. Okay? That is what a straightforward guy would do. You cannot blame the smart guy. He's smart. You cannot blame the other guy as well. He's honest. Now, another thing you must understand in your journey as a neurosurgeon is that there is influence of industry and the corporate world. This is something that all of us will experience at one point or the other. If when you joined residency, remember who you were. If you allow your pride, freedom, joy, true judgment and honor to be sacrificed, then you could become a big corporate neurosurgeon. I'm not saying it's wrong, but ask them, ask the corporate guys. You would make tons of money, you would be always in the limelight, but you would be a different person and with a lot of stress. You would be a different person because there will be no more much of freedom, there will be no more much of joy, there will be no more much of honor. And of course, the industry is another dangerous example of how our beliefs and perspectives can be changed and how we become a part of the complex world of lies. Making money for the industry, being their pawns, and in the process, become the proverbial dog at the dinner table. I hope you know about the proverbial dog at the dinner table. They feed you tidbits and you sit like this and catch those tidbits and you're happy. That's what industry can do to you. And they'll make you write papers in their defense. They will make you hate people who tells you the truth. So sit down, think for yourself. Okay, sit down and think for yourself. Is it always better to coil? Is it always better that radiosurgery and partial resection is done? Or should I go back to the lab, learn good surgery and come back? Is it always good in a third world that I put in coils worth $10,000 when I can actually clip that in less than $100? Okay, what is it that I would choose? Now, another choice is being an academic neurosurgeon. But the problem is, in an institute, you would get a lot of free hand, you would learn. Maybe there's a lot of politics. I'm sure the institutes, they are like countries. They have their own politics, okay? And you have to be the top dog. If you're not the top dog in an institution, you'd be nothing, okay? Most academic neurosurgeons would not survive in a corporate setup, or even if they want to, even if they could, they would not want to. They do not want to go to a corporate setup. They have a different personality, all right? But you must understand the industry has also made dangerous forays into the academic world as well. So, the academic neurosurgeons get once in a while holidays to exotic locations with their family, and they'd be happy to write a paper about gabapentin or the advantages of radio surgery for cavernomas or something like that. Okay, something that they would come to believe in with an added thrust. Okay, it is called in chess, you move with, if you make a move and there is an additional advantage, it's called with tempo. So in chess, it's called move with tempo. So you would probably, if you're not doing something much, then you would want to write a paper on radio surgery for cavernomas or something like that. Okay, and then you probably, so the industry is made forays into that world as well. It's, you have to know. Okay, again, nothing is right or wrong. It is about our personal choices. It's about who you are. How much are you ready to sacrifice? And what are you willing to sacrifice? However, whatever you do, in the end, if you are a sad, lonely, and retired person who was just a shadow of the person who went to do your residency, that is what emerges at the end after you finished your neurosurgery. Well, it doesn't matter how many surgeries you've done. Doesn't matter how many cars you own. Doesn't matter how many lectures you've given. The road you've taken was not the best for you. You must remember that. Okay? So what can be changed wherever you are? What can be changed? What I did over the last 13 years, I got some lessons. Constant improvement. That means you should not have an ego. You know, I had a huge ego, and it really stopped me from learning. I am trying to correct it, okay, but I'm not saying I'm successful, but I'm trying to correct it. I try to learn from people, okay? Constant improvement and introspection and further improvements in one's career with respect to their surgical technique, their wisdom, and, you know, and not going negative because of the negative experiences they've had. It's very, very important, okay? New lines of thinking. For example, cystonostomy, then after that I figured out how the brain was cooled and cleaned. Then we figured out what is CSF shift edema. Now we're thinking of new neurosurgery using pots and designing instruments for all this. So this is the joy of new thinking, okay? Improving on techniques. Always thinking about how to be a step ahead, right? So that is one thing. Another thing is learning to be kind and better human beings. This is something that we forget as neurosurgeons. If you look at the last 2 generations, you see a lot of mean, really mean, terrible guys. They think they are gods. They think they are nothing less than gods, and it is their right and their privilege to be behaving badly to other people. Wrong. It's completely wrong. It is and not only in neurosurgery, we take all other branches of medicine. You see these top dogs who are very, very abrasive and hurtful. Not correct. So you need to learn to be kind and better human beings. It's as important as learning techniques, because unless you're happy, you're not going forward. Okay? It's very important. Learning to enjoy life with travel, good company, both your friends and girls. Okay? Don't look at the morals and the societies. They're not going to do you anything. Believe me, when I tell you, believe me, okay? Good company of girls, of guys, other finer aspects of life like adventures, hobbies, and knowledge. This is very important, I tell you. You should not, you should never ignore this. knowledge, reading books, adventures, learning new things, hobbies. Okay, don't ignore these. These are very, very important. You will regret it when you are older. Being fit. This is something, whether you're corporate, whether you're an academic, whether you're whatever, this is something that will help you. Being fit. Be fit. Always, as much as you can. I see Yuha at the age of 70 doing a handstand for 2 minutes. It's crazy. Okay? So he still does it, I think. And then learning to be happy. This is one of the biggest things. Wherever you are, whatever you are, learning to be happy, learning to meditate, reflect, and learning to understand what is the second plane of living. Not the first plane of living. First plane of living is grab, grab, grab. Everything. Second plane of living is give, give, give. Everything. Okay. Second plane of living is what leads you to happiness. We'll have a talk about the second plane of living sometime later. And last, you should pass on the lessons to the future generations. And if you don't, you're looking at no progress. Okay? In old Indian philosophy, there is a term called, there is a song called Enduru Mahanubhavulu, which means there were a lot of noble people before you. These people are the reason why you are here. And if you don't pass on your lessons, how much ever junior you are, you could pass on your lessons to a medical student. You could pass on your lesson to your chief resident. You could pass it on to your immediate juniors. Tell them, see, listen, this is what I learned. You don't have to relearn it. This is what I learned. And so these things can be done regardless of whoever you are, whatever you are. Okay? And this is what I think important. I would rather now pass on the mic to probably Juha and ask him what he learned. He has almost double or maybe more than the experience that I've had, maybe 3 times the experience that I've had in neurosurgery. So I would ask Juha to come on and then talk about his experiences and his lessons.
Oh, Yuha, I hope he's there. He's gonna, Yuha, are you there? Okay, go ahead, Yuha. Go ahead, Yuha.
Yeah, I have not suddenly many thoughts. What Ipe says, I think Ipe said, I think he should continue. Maybe I say a few words and then the Ipe can continue with the coronary sinus surgery. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Okay, this they were nice thoughts what the Ipe gave. So I conclude that neurosurgery is hard contact sports. So you have to be fit mentally and somatic. Fitness is very important. So you have to have hobbies, like Ipe said. I was not so good in that. I was always in the hospital and doing neurosurgery. But what I regret, now I have been 50 years in neurosciences, so I learned to use the microscope 1969 in Brain Research Institute in Zurich. And now this more than 50 years I have been using the microscope. I began my training 1973 in Helsinki. And the times were completely different. Microsurgery was not yet in Helsinki, it was in Zurich. Yazarkil was beginning 1967 when I was a student in Zurich, and we were following his footsteps there, what happened. Krahenbühl was giving lectures, Yazarkil was giving lectures, and that's why I became neurosurgeon. Like Ipe said, we are not extremely intelligent, so I noted very quickly in Brain Research Institute that I'm not enough intelligent to do basic research, but I learned also to like work in hospital. So I was thinking I can use brain research some way, and then I went to neurosurgery and I asked Yasakil to be trained there in Zurich. 1973, he said, yes, come, join us. But then I got different information that it is extremely heavy place and not good for my temperature, how do you say, temper. And so I selected to go back to home, to Helsinki, 1973, and microscope came to Helsinki in 1975. So there were 2 years very classical neurosurgery, which I could join without microscope, and then slowly the microsurgery was begun in Helsinki, and I could learn the elementary things. I moved to Eastern Finland, Kuopio, 1979, after my PhD. And the reason why I went to what Retsadasti, my fellow, later called Western Siberia, it was that it was a new department and there were a lot of patients to operate on. We were only 2 neurosurgeons and I could operate simple day and night as much as I could, and I did a lot. But then slowly I noted that I have to learn something more. I went to visit Yasakil, and this was 1982. It was the most important thing in my life, neurosurgical life, that I saw the giant like Muhammad Ali or Usain Bolt in action. He was so good, number one. And then there was nothing, and then there were number threes. But all young, talented neurosurgeons came to see Yasakil to operate on, and all of them became professor in their home countries and spread microsurgery around the world. So at that time, 1982, when I went to Zurich, there were also the first Chinese neurosurgeon to be trained in microneurosurgery, and came back to China and then spread microneurosurgery in China. So I went back to Kuopio and began to follow Yasakil's footsteps. We bought a similar microscope with mouth switch, and then Yasakil instruments, and so I copied everything. So when Yasakil came here 2001 to Helsinki, he felt very much home because it was very similar to the Zurich operation room, and he was operating 3 summers in Helsinki. We had good times and I learned a lot from him, but all the time I have been, let's say, far away a student of Yasakil, like you are doing now, learning during this pandemic. You are learning a lot far away. I was reading all the Yasakil books and try to follow everything. That time there were Yasakil videos, but they were too expensive for me to buy. I bought the books and I have read them many times through, and they are still very valid and good to learn microsurgery. Nowadays, you can see a lot of operative videos. This is extremely important. You can have a lot of videos, you can have a lot of books, but if you don't work on them, then you don't learn. Then you have them, but to read the books and study is important. Like I've said, it is important to train if you have a good animal laboratory or cadaver laboratory, then you can train there very well. I didn't have ever good possibility for that. So I tried to go abroad to train in cadaver laboratories and animal laboratories. And during the time 1980, so I noted what Jaip said, that you want to have a place where you can decide about your own activities. So I began to search for a chairman position, and I applied several places, Oulu, Berlin, and so on. But I needed international experience, and then I went to London, Great Britain, and then I went to London, Ontario, Canada, to Professor Drake and Peerless, which were famous, and it was always my dream to learn from them. And then I applied for a fellowship in London, Ontario, but Dr. Drake retired and Dr. Peerless moved to Miami, so we went, or the family, we went to Miami, completely different circumstances than in London, Ontario. London, Ontario was a small city, so I liked it very much, and Miami was a hectic big city, so it was difficult to go there practically, but I got all the operations from Dr. Drake and Peerless, and I could work, by working hard, I could make the book and some papers in Miami, and so slowly I collected enough CV, curriculum vitae, so that I could apply to Helsinki. To go back to Helsinki, I became chairman there in 1997, and then I was 18 years in Helsinki. Hectic, good years. Like in Zurich, we had many visitors around the world, more than 3,000 came to Helsinki, and I learned from the visitors as much as they learned from me. This is extremely important because you cannot do neurosurgery alone. This is one, you can do many things alone, but neurosurgery is a team work. You have to be able to work with different kind of people, nurses, other doctors, and you cannot work alone. Once in Kuopio, I was making a simple operation, trepanation in the head for chronic subdural hematoma, and I was just beginning. Then suddenly I noticed there is no one in the operation room because emergency operation in heart tamponade came in another room and they needed all the help. So I was with the patient awake, so I was discussing with him, but I couldn't continue the operation. I had to wait, or I made a burr hole, but I had to wait for closing. I had to wait for the other team to help me to do it, to finish the operation well. So this is a teamwork, hard contact sport, and it is the many difficulties, complications, spite your nature. You have to be able to manage the difficulties, complications, and to be able also to begin again. Even you had a disaster, hemiplegia of the patient or death, then you have to continue and go back and to do the surgery again. And this is, of course, extremely hard. And when I was doing my first years of operations, I was learning a lot, reading and preparing for the operations. So after one operation, when I came home, I slept 1 or 2 hours because I was so tired. But then later, I could operate extremely many cases in one room. The record was 7 craniotomies in one room in one day, of course, operating on very late in the evening, midnight, but anyhow, it showed that we had an extremely effective and good team, and one of the most important persons are, of course, anesthetist. You should never fight with your anesthetist, and the scrub nurse, giving instruments, always the right instruments, is mentally also very strongly supporting you in the surgery. So this is very important, and I think there are few neurosurgeons who are not stressed or nervous or afraid of operations. It is always the same thing. But when you get the knife in your hand, then you are no more nervous. But before that performance, you are nervous. And by me, it is so that when I get the microscope mouth switch in my mouth and see the things so beautifully through the microscope, then I'm no more nervous, or at least it goes down. I think to be afraid is important, because if you are never nervous or afraid, then you cannot estimate how difficult the operation is, and yeah, this protects the patients, that you cannot do without being nervous. So after having done so many operations, more than 16,000, so I have to say that it doesn't mean much if I have done so many. Of course, it is coming. I know that I have done, but every case is new. So for these patients coming to operation room, it is 100% or 0% the outcome. So you have to repeat your experience. Many of the videos I'm looking now, so AVMs or giant basilar bifurcation aneurysms, I couldn't do anymore. I'm just surprised how I could do them, but I would be extremely afraid of them to do them. So maybe it was so that I made so many operations, so I lost somehow to be scared, and I could do without disturbing critics on myself. I could do, and successfully I could do. So this remains big mystery. But I think to learn neurosurgery, to learn to operate on, is like walking or sports or whatever, playing piano, violin, soccer, tennis you mentioned. So you have to do it. You have to train and train. There is a rule of 10,000 hours. If you train 10,000 hours, then you are on the top. When you are doing it well, then you might be on the top of the world. And I have another rule. So if you have been 10,000 hours in operation room, so then you are at your best. And this comes around when you are 50. So if you have it still ahead, so you will all the time improve. Professor Yasakil is getting now 95 years old. He's saying that no, it was my professor in anatomy, Giant Thunder in Zurich. He was shouting to us students that medical study is a lifelong study, and anatomy even more difficult. So it takes lifetime to learn. And Yasakil is saying that we are students forever, and he's practicing that. So he's still going to operation room and still dissecting. I have seen Professor Yasakil at the age of close 90 years in St. Louis in cadaver laboratory. All other guys had left, young guys, but Professor Yasakil was still dissecting the brain and skull base, and the sun was going down and was shining through the windows, and there were two old heads. The sunlight was coming very nicely on Professor Yasakil when he was dissecting, and it gave me many thoughts. Should I do the same way? Certainly not. I will not continue so long, but after retiring in Helsinki 2015, so I was searching a place where I could continue. I went to Latin America, I went to USA, Indonesia, and then I was 1 year in the good place of Yaip, and then I had a good offer here in China, and here I am slowing down now. Can you see me?
No, we can't see you.
Can you see me?
Not yet. You want to turn your camera on?
Something happened.
Oh, I think
Something happened.
no, the camera hasn't been on the whole time. I thought you knew.
Okay, I told some thoughts that came in my mind. I could give a lecture later with the slides, and but I think these were my first thoughts based on what Yaip said. I could give also talk in life in neurosurgery in the coming days. You say that during this pandemic, you have a lot of time and audience to listen, so we could use that. So I would like to give Yaip now the talk, and he can continue with his cavernous sinus lecture. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yuka. Thank you very much. And
yeah, thank you very much, Yaip. My best greetings go to all.
Yeah, I mean, Yuha has been a huge influence for me when he was working with us for 1 year. I have seen him in close quarters how he is. He's a gem of a person. It's been a real honor to have him. So what we will do is we would do the cavernous sinus maybe on another session. Hira will schedule us to the cavernous sinus, and I can see that Victor is
yeah,
also
please
there.
go ahead to cavernous sinus. Yeah, this will be interesting.
Shall I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. From my side, yes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Then.
I will just continue. Yeah.
Yuha, I am going to show paraclinoid where paraclinoid aneurysm, and after that we will show some cavernous dissection. So first I will show the paraclinoid. So I mean, I would like you to let me tell you, tell me as to what exactly you would do in this case, Yuha.
Okay, I follow.
So this is seen?
Yes.
The angio is seen, I hope.
You're going to play it, right? Okay. Looks good.
Yeah, so this is an aneurysm directed medially. So you can see that the carotid is coming and this aneurysm is directed, this aneurysm is directed medially. You could see that. So we are going ahead with the extradural clinoidectomy at very, very high magnification. We are doing the orbitomeningeal band peeling and taking out the clinoid furthermore, extradurally. Yuhai is somebody who also likes to operate at very high magnification. He also puts at extremely high magnification, and if you're not used to it, you would get disoriented, in fact. So keeping on reducing this. And after that, opening the arachnoid there. So the falciform ligament continues as the distal dural ring. So this is an easy trick to cut the falciform ligament, and then after that you get good control of the C3 carotid. So this is something that I use to, once you've taken out the clinoid, once you've completely taken out the clinoid, it's a rather easy thing to do. So you can see the clinoid is completely off there, and you can see the distal dural ring in that region. So you're cutting that off and getting more access, more and more access. Your aneurysm is pointing in this direction medially. So to mobilize this carotid, you should, that's a carotid coming and that's the aneurysm there. Cutting further into the distal dural ring and the roof. So that now you can see the carotid coming from there, and that's the aneurysm. Further, doing a T-cut to get some more space there. The roof of the cavernous sinus is opened. If you cut the distal dural ring, you open the roof of the cavernous sinus, and so Now you can see clearly the aneurysm. That's a carotid coming in, and that is aneurysm underneath, going underneath the optic nerve. So you clip parallel to the carotid. Then you do the ICG. You can see the third nerve there. It's going parallel to the carotid. You should see that that's a third nerve there. That's a carotid and that's the aneurysm. So that's one paraclinoid I would want to show. Let's look at another paraclinoid. Again, going ahead with the same dissection, orbitomeningeal band, and peeling. Doing the cavernous sinus peeling here. That is the cavernous sinus going into the superior orbital fissure there. So that is the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is being peeled away so that this clinoid angle is completely free, and then you can drill there without much problems. This peeling can be done all the way into the cavernous sinus, all the way up to V3, and then you can go into the Kawasaki triangle also. So now you must understand that this aneurysm is literally touching the clinoid. So we are doing extradural clinoidectomy here. Keeping on doing extradural clinoid. This side is the cavernous sinus. This is the clinoid. Shelling out the clinoid now. That is the optic roof. That's a clinoid. That region is the strut. Drilling out the clinoid now further. Using 1 millimeter drill to drill in the region of, this is the region of the aneurysm, that is optic nerve, and you will see when I open the aneurysm is right here. So drilling in that region, this 1 millimeter drill is like a needle. Be very, very careful. Very small. Actually, if you see the right size under the microscope, it is seeming this much, but you see the 2 millimeter suction and the 1 millimeter drill bit. Taking out the strut. So that is the optic nerve, extradural optic nerve, that is the aneurysm. This is the region of the aneurysm. So I can cut all the way like this. Once the clinoid is gone, I can cut from inside, I can cut all the way parallel to the optic nerve. That is what you will see now. So we are going to open, and you can see this is the optic nerve and that is the aneurysm. So since the clinoid is gone, I can cut all the way this way. This way I can cut. Since I have extradurally taken off this aneurysm, you must understand this clinoid was here, it was touching the aneurysm. So, but you have a layer of dura, so there is no problem actually. So this is the optic nerve, this is the aneurysm. Opening and letting out the subarachnoid blood, opening cisterns. The brain becomes much laxer after this. Going to the other side and taking out all the blood. And now opening along the optic nerve. You saw from the extradural optic nerve how, after taking clinoid, how easily you can open along the optic nerve. No bone there, only ligament, only the falciform going on to the proximal, to the distal dural ring. So keeping on opening it. Now that is a extradural optic nerve. It has become intradural optic nerve now. This is extradural space. So that is you have opened from intradural to the extradural space. So that is extradural carotid artery going there. That is the boundary. And you are cutting the distal dural ring, which is incorporated to the carotid wall. So I'm showing the residents how we are going to clip, because you can see the carotid parallel there coming up. In Nepal, we don't have too many clips, so it is better to clip with one clip if you can. Cannot keep on stacking clips after clips, but most of the time we try. These kind of giant aneurysms are not usually. You can see the continuation of the carotid there. The carotid is, you can see the carotid here going down, C3 carotid going down there. So that is the aneurysm. So now, after moving the optic nerve, because we have mobilized the optic nerve completely by cutting across all the way into the extradural compartment, so the optic nerve is much more mobile. You can see the carotid there. You can see the carotid going down there. So now I can put parallel clip there. Going down and then making sure the limbs cross over, and then you can see this carotid coming up. That is the carotid coming up, C3 carotid coming up, the paracellular carotid coming up, and that's it. So that is the carotid coming up, and this is the intradural carotid. This is a transitional aneurysm. So well, so that is about it. I would like, Yuha has a lot of experience with these kind of aneurysms, well, with every type of aneurysms. So, I have learned a lot from him, and I'm sure he will continue to inspire many more, and I will try to, teach the young neurosurgeons like he does. And as he said, he's trained over 3,000 fellows in Helsinki. Helsinki was like the mecca of neurosurgery at one time. So I hope people continue to be in the same way as he is teaching a lot of people who's gone all over the world. So thank you very much.
I
Ike, do you want to interact? Oh, there's O'Toole. Dr. Goel, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, John. And it was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. I saw the latter part of the thing when you were clipping. The dissection was very good. The dissection of the paraclinoid, that area of the carotid artery is not so easy as it looks like, but you were working in quite a big magnification and quite a beautiful field. I think you have done a very fantastic job. And I'm really happy to see what you have shown.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. It's always an honor to have all of you here, sir. Yuha, are you here, Yuha? Professor Goel is here. I mean, it's great to have two legends on the same.
Yeah, this is an unusual day. Let me see if I think Yuha may have stepped away. Hold on. Are you there, Yuha? I don't believe here. Here's Victor. Hey, Victor.
Hello,
Hey,
hello,
Victor.
Ipe. Excellent job, Ipe. Excellent dissection and clipping of this difficult aneurysm. You have a very, very nice technique to go through this aneurysm. Congrats.
Thank you,
Thank
Victor.
you. Thank you.
I remember Victor in my theater maybe 4 or 5 years back, and we had a very, very difficult sitting position tumor.
Yes, I remember that tumor. Really difficult, but patient did very well.
Yeah, I remember taking it out.
In the pineal region.
Yeah, in the pineal region. Yeah, I remember that about 4 or 5 years back. Victor and Kazari was in my theater.
Yes, of course.
I'm looking forward to coming to Mexico sometime.
Yes, of course, next year.
And you know what? Professor Goel and Victor, Professor Goel, sir, if you could tell us a few advices about today was about insights into neurosurgery. So if you could give us, I mean, Yuha was talking about his insights. And if you could, you being another legend, if you could talk some advices, I mean, what you have learned in your legendary career, if you can talk something about advice for all of us.
You know what, neurosurgery is, we love neurosurgery, we live neurosurgery. We have to just dedicate ourselves completely to this great subject if we have to achieve. It is not easy subject. We have to work hard. We have to be positive. We have to be extremely positive. We have to be confident. We have to be more than confident. And we have to continuously work hard, because if we do a good job, we give a new life. On the other hand, if we do not do a good job, we can kill the person. So it is between life and death for the person. So we have to, there is no other beautiful thing than giving new life. So if you go to the patient and say, have you got a new life? And if he says yes, so what a great feeling that will give us. So to get that feeling, we have to constantly and consistently and persistently work extremely hard. That is the bottom line. In this journey of ours, we have to be confident. We have to be, but we should not be overconfident. We have to be proud, but there should be not a speck of pride. We have to walk with our legs and feet completely stable on the ground. We should not think that we are beyond ourselves. We should stay within ourselves. We should talk confidently like you talk. Your way of talking and your confidence is absolutely fantastic. I think we have to continue in the manner and in the way we are doing. More important is, of course, you have to be intelligent. Of course, you have to be skilled. But in addition to all these things, you should get opportunities also. You should be able to work in that department where you get many, many cases to operate. More and more you operate, better you become. So that is the thing. You see, I have been working, fortunately for me, in a public hospital, which is completely catering free to the people. So my volumes is the key. And that has what has made me. And one message I can give you is neurosurgery is a very passionate kind of subject. Cushing had said that neurosurgeons have a chip on their shoulders. If we can remove that chip and keep our heads down, but still keep our shoulders broad and walk confidently, that is the thing that we have to do and we have to continue. Right, that is my message.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. John,
Yes.
we have to schedule a lot more talks in the coming weeks. Professor Goyal, whenever he wants to make his comeback, he
Yes,
is on.
yes.
I think. Whenever you get a better connection, sir.
So I am working on it. I am now having a good connection, and I'll come back to this forum with you and with John and with several other friends. And you'll be surprised that I received that if I was absent for 2, 3 days, I received some messages that they are missing me. So I will
Good,
certainly,
good,
certainly
good.
not, certainly not let this beautiful opportunity go away from my hand. I will certainly be back soon. Hi, and John.
Very good. You're welcome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Ike, I guess we'll wrap it up for this week. Is there anything else you want to do, Ike?
Nothing else, John. We'll wrap it up. Thank you very much for everybody who came.
Beautiful case, Aip. Again, I must say, beautiful case you showed. Beautiful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That really means a lot when coming from you, sir.
Congratulations.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Thank you for coming.